Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going into the fashion world, and we're getting you ready for a Clothing Sample Machinist interview. We've got some help from RoleCatcher to get you ready for those tricky questions. You know, the ones that you might sweat a little bit about.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to give you the tools you need and hopefully the confidence to show off your skills and all that passion.
So first things first, um, let's describe what a Clothing Sample Machinist does. You know, I think it's a little more than just sewing, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Think of them like that bridge between a designer's vision and that actual piece of clothing. They take the initial sketches and they turn them into an actual sample that people can wear. This means that they need to know a lot about fabrics and construction techniques and making sure that those samples are ready to be made on a bigger scale.
So it's a blend of being creative and having that technical know-how, which is probably why interviewers ask us specific questions, right?
Right.
And RoleCatcher gave us a little preview of some of the common ones. Are you ready to take a look at them?
Oh, yeah, let's do it. I love going through these questions and helping people understand what the interviewer is really trying to find out.
Okay, so here's the first one. Can you describe your experience with different types of fabric? So that seems pretty straightforward. But is there a secret to answering this one well?
Yeah, so it's all about not just listing fabrics. You want to think about projects where you've had to face some unique challenges. For example, maybe you've worked with like a silk chiffon that frayed really easily, or you had to match plaids perfectly. How did you adapt your techniques? What did you learn? Those details really bring your experience to life.
Oh, so it's about showcasing problem-solving skills as much as just knowing the technical stuff.
Exactly. The interviewer wants to know that you can think quickly and handle anything unexpected because every fabric is different. It has its own personality.
Yeah, speaking of personality, the next question is, how do you ensure that you are producing high-quality samples? So this one seems like it's all about your work ethic.
It is, but it's also about your process. Do you have a list that you follow? One of those meticulous checklists. Do you always double check your measurements? Are you constantly evaluating the sample against the original design? Sharing those details will show that you're committed to quality.
It's like giving them a little peek into how you do things.
Exactly. And, a good story can really make you memorable. For instance, maybe you stayed late one night to fix a tiny little imperfection just because you knew that the sample had to be absolutely perfect for a big presentation.
Okay, so let's go over this one. Can you walk me through your process for creating a sample from a design sketch? This one seems like a big one.
It is, and it's a good chance to show off that you understand the entire process of making a sample. Start by telling them how you analyze the sketch. Pay attention to those details, like where the seams are, darts, closures, things like that. Then explain how you take those design elements and turn them into a pattern, maybe even mention if you use any software to do that. And then finally walk them through how you put it all together, those key steps and techniques.
So it's like you're giving them a little behind-the-scenes tour.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to mention those challenges that you faced and how you overcame them. Maybe you had a design detail that was really hard and you had to get creative to find a solution, or maybe you had to make some changes really quickly, just on the spot.
So that problem-solving element is so important. It shows that you're not just following directions, but you're really thinking and finding solutions. Okay, so this is a question that everyone can relate to. How do you handle tight deadlines and a high volume of samples to produce?
Oh, yeah, that's the constant struggle, isn't it? This one is about how you manage your time and stay organized. Tell them about the system you use to decide which tasks are most important and how you keep everything moving. Do you use a planner, or do you like to break down big projects into smaller ones? No matter what your method is, make sure you talk about how well you work under pressure.
So it's about showing that you can manage all those demands without, sacrificing quality.
Yes, exactly. And, if you can think of a specific example of a time when you handled a difficult project successfully, share it.
Okay, so let's change gears a little bit. Here's a question about teamwork. How do you collaborate with other departments like design and production? So this one seems like it's all about communication.
It definitely is. Clothing sample machinists don't work alone. They have to be able to communicate with the designers to understand their vision and the production teams to make sure that the samples can actually be manufactured.
So what are some things that people should talk about when they're answering this one?
Focus on how well you give and receive feedback. Maybe you suggested a change to a design once that made it easier to sew. Or you worked closely with the production team to find a fabric that was cost-effective but still high quality. Those are good examples of successful collaboration.
So it's about showing that you're a team player and that you can contribute those valuable insights throughout the process. And I know we've been asking you a lot of questions, but don't worry. RoleCatcher has this great feature that can really help you tailor your answers.
You're talking about their AI feedback, right?
That's right. It's like having a personal coach in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
You can type in your answers, and RoleCatcher will give you some specific suggestions. It's all about making your answers clearer and more impactful and, really tailoring them to that job that you're going for.
Yeah, it takes away all the guesswork when you're prepping for the interview, and it really helps you feel more confident.
Okay, so before we get to more questions, I want to talk about some career insights from RoleCatcher's Career Guide. This one's specifically for clothing sample machinists. It actually shows different career paths, which is really helpful.
And it talks about how the role is both creative and technical. It shows how you could move up within a company, maybe become a senior sample machinist, or even specialize in a certain area like tailoring or, couture.
So it's like having a roadmap for your career.
Exactly. It also talks about how important it is to keep learning new things like techniques, technologies, and what's trending in the industry.
Okay, so now that we've got a little more context, let's go back to those interview questions. Ready for the next one?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, here we go. Can you explain your experience working with different types of sewing machines?
Okay, so this one's all about showing off your technical skills. Don't just give them a list of all the machines you've used. Think about specific projects that showed how good you are with each machine. For example, maybe you've worked on those big industrial machines for those heavy-duty fabrics, or you've used domestic machines for finer details, or even, those special machines like cover stitch or buttonhole machines.
So it's all about showing that you can adapt and that you're versatile.
That's it. And you can also mention any software or computer programs that you're familiar with, because technology is becoming more and more important in the sewing world.
So it's about showing that you're comfortable with both those traditional methods and, those newer technologies. Okay, ready for another one?
Absolutely. I'm ready to break it down.
Okay, here it is. Can you describe your understanding of pattern making and alteration?
This one goes beyond just sewing. It's about showing that you know how garments are constructed and that you can really think critically about fit and design. Explain how you understand those basic pattern-making principles, whether you've used flat patterns or draping methods.
So another chance to show off those problem-solving skills.
Yes. Maybe you've had to change a pattern to make it work with a certain fabric or adjust the fit for a different body type. Share those experiences and show how much attention to detail you have.
It's about showing that you're not just following instructions, but you can adapt and modify things to get that perfect result.
Okay, let's look at this one. Can you explain your experience with different types of garment construction techniques? That seems pretty broad.
It is, but it's a good chance to show off how much you can do. Think about all the different techniques you've used, from simple seams and hems to those more specialized techniques like tailoring darts pleats or even hand finishing details.
Yeah, so you're painting a picture of all your skills and showing how comfortable you are with all those different methods. Exactly. You could even mention any special equipment that you've used, like embroidery machine sergers or even those big industrial pressing machines.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. But before we move on, I want to remind everybody about RoleCatcher's AI feedback tool. It's so helpful for making your answers better and really making sure you're getting everything right.
I agree. It can really give you that extra confidence and help you make a great impression.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll have even more interview questions and insights. Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of the Clothing Sample Machinist interview. We've already covered some really important questions, and now we're going to tackle even more to help you feel prepared and confident going into that interview.
That's right. We're going to keep unraveling these interview mysteries with RoleCatcher's insights right here by our side. So let's jump back in. How about this question? What are some of the challenges you've faced when working with different types of fabrics, and how did you overcome them? I feel like they really want to know how you solve problems. Oh, for sure. I mean, it's one thing to say, oh yeah, I've worked with a bunch of different fabrics, but they want to know what happens when things don't go as planned. Like maybe you had a slippery silk satin that moved around while you were sewing, or a stretchy knit that needed some special handling, or a delicate lace that snagged really easily. How did you adjust what you were doing to get the result you wanted?
So it's about showing that you can be resourceful and, think on your feet.
Huh.
Because, sometimes fabrics have a mind of their own.
Exactly. A good example would be if you had to work with a thick, bulky fabric,
Hmm.
like a bucole or a coating. Maybe you had to change your stitch length or the tension, or even use a walking foot to make sure the fabric fed through the machine smoothly. Sharing those details will show them that you really understand fabric and that you can adjust your techniques as you go.
It also shows that you're not afraid of a challenge and that you're willing to try new things to find the best solution. Okay, so let's move on to a question that really gets to your passion for fashion. How do you stay up to date on the latest fashion trends and incorporate them into your sample making?
Ooh, this is a great chance to show them how much you love the industry. You're not just a technician, the big picture. You know how trends affect design and how those designs turn into real clothes that people can wear.
So how can you show them that you're really in the know when it comes to fashion?
Think about where you get your inspiration. Maybe it's fashion magazines or websites like Instagram or Pinterest, runway shows, or even just watching people on the street. Then connect those trends to specific techniques that you've used when you're making your samples. Like maybe you were inspired by, those 90s styles that are coming back and you tried making a bias cut slip dress, or you saw a designer using pleats and you tried that in one of your samples.
So it's about showing that you're always learning and growing and figuring out how to turn those big fashion ideas into real clothes. Okay, here's a question about finding that balance between creativity and practicality. Can you describe a time when you had to work with a designer whose vision was difficult to translate into a sample? How did you handle the situation?
Ooh, yeah, the classic clash between the artist and the person who has to make it happen. This question is all about how you communicate and solve problems, especially when you and the designer don't agree.
That sounds tricky. How do you handle that without, stepping on anyone's toes?
You have to be honest, but also diplomatic. It's okay to admit that you've had situations where a designer's idea was really hard to make into a real sample. What matters is how you dealt with it. Did you ask the designer lots of questions to make sure you really understood what they wanted? Did you come up with different solutions or suggest changes that would still keep the design but make it possible to sew? Did you work together with a designer to find something that made both of you happy?
So it's about showing that you can be strong and stand up for yourself, but also be a team player and find that middle ground where creativity and real-world sewing come together. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Here's one that's all about your technical skills. What are your preferred methods for ensuring accurate seam allowances and garment measurements?
This is where you show them how much you care about the details. It's about those habits that make sure your work is always precise and consistent. Think about the tools and techniques that you use. Maybe you're really strict about using a seam gauge and marking your fabric really carefully, or you like to use tailor's tacks to mark those important spots, or maybe you double check your measurements before you cut anything. And you always test your machine's tension and stitch length on a scrap piece of fabric before you start on the real thing.
Yeah, those little things make a big difference.
Exactly. And you can even talk about any special tools that you use, like a rotary cutter and mat for those super straight cuts, or a French curve ruler for those curved seams.
Okay, switching gears again. This question is about how do you prioritize tasks when you have multiple samples to create with varying deadlines? Because that's the reality of the job, right? There's always a lot going on.
Oh, yeah, for sure. This is where those time management and organization skills come in handy again. Interviewers want to know that you can handle a busy environment and keep all those projects moving along without, dropping the ball.
So how can you show them that you're organized and on top of things?
Tell them about your system. Maybe you use a planner or one of those task management apps to keep track of deadlines and what you've already done. Maybe you decide what to work on first based on how urgent it is or how complicated it is, or even if you have the right fabric. Maybe you break those big projects down into smaller steps to keep things moving smoothly.
So it's all about showing them that you have a plan and that you're not just winging it.
That's it. And if you have a story about a time when you handled a bunch of projects with tight deadlines, successfully tell them about it. It's always good to give examples from your own experience.
Okay, let's change things up a little bit and talk about sustainability. This is becoming more and more important in the fashion industry. So they might ask you, how do you consider sustainability in your sample making process?
That's a great question. It shows that the company is thinking about the future and wants to do things the right way. This is your chance to show them that you care about the environment and you know how to be responsible even when you're making samples.
So how can you show them that you're committed to sustainability?
Think about all the decisions you make while you're working. Do you try to use less fabric by being careful about how you lay out your pattern pieces? Do you use eco-friendly fabrics like organic cotton or recycled materials when you can? Do you think about how much energy you're using by turning off your machines when you're not using them? Maybe you even find ways to reuse those scraps of fabric and make something new, like a little accessory or a detail for another garment.
It's all about showing them that you're not just focused on the final product, but you're also thinking about the bigger picture and how your choices affect the environment and the whole industry. Now, I want to remind everybody about an amazing feature that RoleCatcher has that can really help you prepare for these types of questions, their AI-powered feedback system.
It's a game changer. You can type in your answers to some practice questions, and RoleCatcher's AI will give you suggestions on how to make them even better, clearer, and, more powerful. It can even help you tailor your answers to the specific company and role you're applying for.
It's like having a virtual coach right there in your pocket, helping you polish those answers and boost your confidence. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the Clothing Sample Machinist interview. We've come a long way, and I hope you're feeling more prepared and ready to show off your skills.
Absolutely. We've covered a lot of ground, but we've got some more tips and insights to help you finish strong.
And remember, we've got RoleCatcher here with us to help us navigate this last part of the interview journey. So let's jump right back into those questions. How about this one? What are your salary expectations for this role? This is the question that makes everyone nervous, right?
It can be a little uncomfortable, but think of it as a conversation. They want to know if your expectations match up with what they can offer. And you want to make sure that you're being paid fairly for what you bring to the table.
So how do you answer this one without feeling like you're either asking for too much or selling yourself short?
Do your research first. RoleCatcher's Career Guide is really helpful for this. It gives you salary ranges based on your experience where you live and even info about specific companies. Knowing what other people are making gives you a good starting point.
So it's all about knowing what you're worth.
Exactly. And when you tell them what you're looking for, give them a range, not just one number. It shows you're flexible. And you can also mention that your salary expectations depend on the whole package, benefits, opportunities for growth, and the specific things you'd be doing in the role.
It's about showing them that you're a professional and you know what you bring to the table.
Okay, so let's move on to a question that's all about the future. What are your long-term career goals? This one always makes me wonder if they expect you to have everything figured out.
You don't need to have a perfect plan. Just show them that you're ambitious, that you're thinking about your future, and that you see this job as a step towards something bigger.
Okay, so how should someone approach this question?
Think about where you see yourself in, say, 5 or 10 years. Do you want to be a senior sample machinist, maybe leading a team? Are you interested in specializing in something specific, like tailoring or couture, or maybe even getting into costume design? Or maybe you're drawn to the production side of things where you're in charge of the whole manufacturing process. So paint a picture of where you want to go and how this job fits into that.
That's right. And if you're not totally sure about your long-term goals, that's okay too. Just be honest. You could say something like, I love making clothes, and I really want to keep getting better at what I do. I'm open to different career paths in fashion, and I think this position would give me a really strong foundation to build on.
It shows that you're excited about the opportunity and ready to learn and grow with the company. Now let's talk about something that can really help you stand out in an interview, your portfolio.
Yes, that's where you really get to show off your talent and all the amazing things you can do. It's your chance to show your skills, your creativity, and how much you care about the details. Whether you bring physical samples or you have a digital portfolio, make sure it represents your best work and shows how versatile you are.
So what should people keep in mind when they're putting together a portfolio for a Clothing Sample Machinist interview?
Choose pieces that show a variety of skills and techniques. From basic construction to more complex things like tailoring, pleating, or embellishments. Include different types of garments and fabrics to show you can work with different materials and styles. And don't forget to take clear photos or videos that really highlight the construction details and the quality of your work.
It's like giving the interviewer a real sense of who you are as a maker.
Exactly. And if you have any special skills or areas of expertise, make sure to include those in your portfolio too. Like if you're really good at hand finishing techniques or you have experience working with special fabrics like leather or lace, show off those pieces.
It's all about showcasing what makes you unique and making a lasting impression. Now, I want to mention one more amazing feature that RoleCatcher has that can help you prepare for the actual interview, their video interview practice tool.
This is so helpful, especially now that a lot of interviews are done online. You can record yourself answering practice questions, and then RoleCatcher's AI will give you feedback on how you come across, how you're using your body language, even your eye contact.
It's like having a coach who can help you polish your presentation skills and make sure you're projecting confidence and that you look professional.
And the best part is you can practice as many times as you want until you feel totally comfortable and ready.
Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the Clothing Sample Machinist interview. We've talked about the role, we've broken down those tricky questions, and hopefully we've given you the tools and knowledge you need to be successful.
Remember, preparation is key. Use those resources from RoleCatcher, practice your answers, and most importantly, show them how much you love fashion.
And believe in yourself, you've got the skills, you've got the talent, and now you've got the knowledge to make that dream job a reality.
Good luck with your interview. We're rooting for you.
And thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.